No. Can you hear me?
No. Well, I can hear you, yeah.
I can't hear you through this mic.
I have now. Okay, there.
All right, I got you.
So we're good.
Got you.
All right. We're trying to do our first official live show. And today is the Fiesta Bowl matchup between LSU and UCF. First initial thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, it's a big opportunity for LSU to end one of the most unthinkable win streaks in college football to date, which Central Florida has gone 2 years undefeated, including a huge Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl win last season over Auburn, in which they show that they should be taken seriously. And today's game is another big step for UCF to, you know, kind of gain more relevance as far as college football playoff is concerned going into next season.
Yeah. I find this to be one of the more intriguing New Year Six bowls. It's actually to me it's a great accomplishment for the UCF Golden Knights, or just Knights. I think
Golden Knights.
it is Golden Knights. Okay, because I think there's another team called the Golden Knights out there. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but this is a really. The more I looked into it, the harder it became to really kind of gauge LSU versus UCF, because statistics, they really just don't tell the whole story.
I mean, well, on paper, I mean, LSU should win this one handily on paper. If you just look at, I mean, if you're on the outside just looking in, if you just look at, LSU out of the SEC, UCF out of a group of five conference, the American Conference, on paper, LSU should win. But the way UCF has been playing, UCF has been making a case for themselves. And UCF is coming in with a chip on their shoulder. And they have a lot to prove in this game because they're trying to take steps towards being in the conversation for the college football playoff. And it seems that they feel like they've done everything they could. They go undefeated for 2 years in a row. They knocked off an SEC team last season. And you can say what you want about their strength of schedule. They have one of the worst strength of schedules in the nation, but at the same time, no matter what conference you in, it is hard to go undefeated 2 years in a row.
It is.
It's hard.
That is definitely an accomplishment for this team, hands down. But you didn't mention it. The strength of schedule. I mean, if UCF wants to get into that conversation, they have to start going out and like recruiting, even like recruiting like bigger programs. Because well, let's just talk strength of schedule between the two teams. Their top teams were Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Memphis, and LSU played Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Miami. You
Sure, I
know,
mean, LSU has a strong strength of schedule. I mean, and that's where LSU has the edge, is that they're known to be playing in the lights. They've played the bigger teams. UCF, their downfall, I mean, this is going to be the best defense that they faced in LSU. They haven't really faced it. I mean, defense is not a strong point in the American Conference. I mean, Temple hung 40 points on UCF. Memphis hung 41 on UCF in the American Conference Championship game. Another edge LSU may have is that UCF is without their star quarterback, Mackenzie Milton. But at the same time, their backup, Dario Mack Jr., has proved that he is just as capable at leading this offense like Mackenzie Milton. And their running back, Greg McCray, who has been running wild this season for UCF. So this is going to be a tough game for the LSU defense. They got their work cut out for them.
Okay, so I'm going to go into some statistics, and this is honestly where things got to be a bit difficult in really gauging the matchup because, like we said, we just went over the strength of schedule, so these numbers are going to reflect that to a degree. But they were still interesting because UCF statistically is a better team than LSU.
Statistically.
So let's just go LSU versus UCF. Oh Lord, just so I can see it better. There we go. So UCF has the fifth overall rush offense, 276.5 yards per game, 5.8 yards per carry, 41 touchdowns. That's pretty intense. LSU's rush defense, 38th overall, allowing 139.3 yards per game. Uh, so, I mean, how do you read that?
And this is where Greg McCrae for UCF comes in, and this is where Coach Heupel is definitely going to use this guy against this LSU defense. And this is a defense that's going to be without Braden Fihoko. They're going to be without Alexander. They're going to be without Greedy Williams. They're going to be without Christian Fulton. And so with the guys that are out in this game, I definitely see Coach Heupel of UCF really taking shots at this LSU defense today.
Yeah. So while we're still, I mean, this statistic comes with an asterisk next to it because Mackenzie Milton is out. UCF's pass offense was 29th overall, 268.9 yards per game, 26 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. But again, that was with McKilton, Mackenzie Milton at quarterback. The only sample of Mac is
The conference championship game.
Conference championship game. So again, like I said, that comes with an asterisk next to it. LSU defensively, their pass was 44th, allowing just 106.8 yards per game. However, I think that is not all that telling considering who they played their last 4. 3 of their last 4 games were against Alabama, Arkansas, and then the 7 overtime game
against Texas A&M.
Against Texas A&M. So those numbers are a little bit mistelling.
I mean, it doesn't do any justice, and don't be fooled by the numbers. This LSU defense is still they compete at a very high level, especially when you have Coach Aranda leading that defense.
But they will be without their 2 starting cornerbacks, and that I think is in UCF's favor.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, with Greedy Williams, he's probably the top corner in the nation. Christian Fulton, he's emerging himself as one of the better corners in the conference.
And so just so people who don't know, Greedy Williams is sitting out the bowl game, get ready for the draft, and Christian Fulton is injured. But LSU is also going to be without let's see who. So Fulton's out with injury. Greedy Williams, he's sitting out the draft. Nose tackle Ed Alexander, he's sitting out for the draft. Kevin Joseph, he's not going to play. Cornerback, violation of team rules.
And Jacob Phillips is out because of the targeting penalty.
Well, he's out for the first half. And then defensive end Brendan Fihoko, he's been injured since I want to say the Alabama game.
And it's bad that every level has been affected, as far as throughout the rest time between the Texas A&M game and then today's Fiesta Bowl game. And honestly, I mean, you guys see Coach Aranda probably changing some things up in his game plan, changing up schemes and stunts out there for the LSU defense in order for them to be more comfortable with the play calling. But you got Devin White out there, and not only that, Kerry Vincent, who has proven himself. They also still have Grant Delpit out there as well. So there's still some diamonds in the rough out there for that LSU defense to where they could be successful today. But I just feel that for LSU to win, they have to be able to wear down UCF with their strength and power. That's what SEC is all about. UCF is full of speed, and you let them turn into a track meet and you let them get ahead, it's ball game.
Okay, some more statistics. UCF's offense versus LSU's defense. UCF is averaging 44.2 points a game. Their third down conversions is 51%, and they've allowed just 14 sacks all season. LSU's defense, on the other hand, they're allowing 20.9 points per game. They're allowing 35% conversions on third downs and have 29 sacks on the season, which is actually a bit low for what we're used to seeing LSU do.
And that's something that I've noticed all season, that one thing that Coach Aranda and his defense had a problem with was pressuring the quarterback. I mean, I've seen it all year. I mean, there are times that they're able to get to the quarterback. I mean, especially against Georgia and, I mean, against Ole Miss and in a few other games. But it's a disturbing trend. In UCF, they're all about quarterback play. They're all about, their backfield. It's going to be a tough one. This is something where LSU has to take UCF seriously. I
don't think they're not. It's just, it's kind of like, okay, they've had some difficulty getting to the quarterback and putting pressure on the quarterback this year. It's a bit surprising.
Well, I mean, if you want to ask anybody about, want to take UCF seriously and actually going out there and putting your best foot forward. Ask Auburn. I mean, they caught Auburn sleeping last season in the Peach Bowl.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So what do the Knights need to do to move the ball in LSU? Because that's not the impossible task.
Oh, it's not impossible at all. Look, Braden Fehoko is out. Ed Alexander is out. And so this is a wounded defensive line. I say mix it up on the LSU defense. Keep them off, keep them off their feet. You don't want to be predictable against this LSU offense, against the LSU defense, because Coach Aranda, he knows how to. He's one of the best chess players as far as defensive coordinators are concerned in this nation. So if you want to move the ball against this LSU defense, you got to keep them off balance. Mix things up in your playbook. And UCF has a deep playbook as far as offensively. They are capable of many things, things that we probably haven't seen. So keep them off balance, mix things up in the playbook.
So in analyzing the statistics yesterday, now that we kind of move a little bit towards LSU's offense versus UCF's defense, here's the one significant statistic that really stands out because, as people know, LSU's offense did kind of struggle, especially against top tier defensive lines. Their passing game was 58th overall, or 80th overall. They only averaged 214.7 yards, 23 touchdowns, but only 4 interceptions. So both quarterbacks were well protective with their passes, it seems. But again, Milton's not going to be playing. However, Burrow, just 4 interceptions all year long.
That shows us, that shows the experience that Burrow has, and that shows the how well he's able to manage a game, and that's something that's going to be playing a big part against UCF. UCF, they don't have the best defense, but you give them the ball, this offense can get ahead of you. So with Joe Burrow, he just has to play his brand of football.
Well, here's the thing: is that the UCF is actually the passing game is the strength of their defense. They're only allowing 196.2 yards per game right now. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm looking at the top 15, and I wanted to include the top 15 in here when you hear who's the top 15 teams against the pass. Well, 1 through 15, Miami, Michigan. Then you got Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, Appalachian State, Mississippi State, Temple, Bowling Green, Tulsa, Florida, Southern Mississippi, Arkansas State, Alabama, Virginia, Georgia. So, how do you interpret that? You want to sit there and tell me that Eastern Michigan has a better secondary than Alabama?
That is, we might be in the twilight zone then.
Well, my point is just how difficult it is to really sit here and gauge how UCF's numbers are going to translate against a team like LSU, because the competition is different. So does that mean that the Knights have a bad pass defense? No, not at all. But at the same time, it's hard to really gauge how that 196.2 yards a game is going to translate against a SEC pass defense or pass offense.
Well, I'm going to go to the LSU offense for a second. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is playing, though he was involved in the fatal shooting. But in order for the LSU offense to be successful against this UCF defense, you got to let Burrow air it out. Honestly, because Burrow, he's a guy, he can manage the game for you. He can move the ball up and down the field. The last few weeks of the season, he showed his running ability. He showed his dual threat capabilities. So you kind of got to let Joe Burrow kind of carry the game. You're going to have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You're going to have Nick Brossette. But LSU offense, what we're accustomed to, they've always been a run heavy.
And even that was a little bit low this year. They're only 58th, 174.7 yards per game, 4.1 per carry, 29 touchdowns. Again, that's low for LSU standards. A lot of it does come down to LSU struggles on the offensive line. They have had a weaker. Honestly, I don't know if it's necessarily weaker, but definitely chaotic merry-go-round and
Musical chairs.
yeah, musical chairs. Um, it has not been good for LSU's offensive line this year, and that has been what I would argue be the main problem with the offense is they're not giving Joe Burrow enough time to pass. They're not opening holes for the running backs like they had in years past. And quite honestly, if UCF can come in and find a way to take advantage of that, they could definitely slow down the LSU offense.
Well, due to the struggles that LSU have had, as far as in the trenches on both offense and defense, that's why Coach Orgeron put a huge emphasis on getting some trench fighters in the recruiting class this season. And LSU got some studs in the trenches coming into LSU. But, going back to the UCF battle, I guarantee you because of LSU's reputation with the run game, UCF is going to attack that run first. They're going to go after LSU's bread and butter. And that's why I say, of course, try and run the ball, try and get Joe Burrow comfortable. It's a big game. In front of a lot of screaming fans, you're going against a team who's been undefeated for the past 2 seasons. Let Joe Burrow air it out.
And
kind of keep UCF off their heels.
And here is another statistic that you can definitely argue is in favor of UCF is that LSU's offensive line has allowed Joe Burrow to be sacked 33 times this year.
That's not good at all.
The one advantage I say, because honestly, I don't think LSU has that big of an advantage offensively over UCF. The one advantage they do seem to have a clear edge on is the rush game, which, while down for LSU standards, the UCF, their defense is 117th, allowing 227.4 yards per game.
Rushing. That's something that UCF has been struggling with all season. A game where UCF really struggled as far as stopping the run was against Temple, and Temple has one of the best running backs in the nation. And of course, let Joe Burrow air it out, but try and bring Clyde Edwards-Helaire and get Nick Brossette involved. Get your running backs. It's going to take all hands on deck for LSU.
I was as much as that would seem to indicate that teams are just running up the score on UCF, and it's just a bunch of shootouts. Their defense is, oddly enough, only allowing 21.3 points per game. That's pretty impressive, especially considering how many rushing yards per game they're giving up. Their red zone defense must be pretty dope, dude.
Pretty immaculate. Yeah, they give up a lot of yards, but here's my opinion on the defense. You can give up as many yards as you want. Scott Van Pelt said it himself. You can give up as many yards as you want. I don't care if you give up 400 or 500 yards of total offense. But if you only give up, 10 or 17 points a game and you're able to force turnovers, your defense is pretty efficient. You can give as many yards as you want, but if you're able to protect the end zone, force turnovers, then your defense is pretty efficient.
And that was something else that was pretty impressive for UCF is that while their defense wasn't taking the ball away every other down, their turnover margin was plus 14, which is 2 better than LSU's.
I feel in this game that UCF, they might, it all depends on how LSU comes. It all depends on what LSU brings to the table in this game to where either UCF is just going to elevate themselves as a legitimate team, because what better way to solidify yourself as a legitimate contender than to beat one of the nation's most dominant teams in LSU? Or UCF is going to get hit hard with reality, and LSU is going to hit them straight in the mouth.
Well, it should definitely be interesting. I don't know. I'm up in the air in this one. I know who on paper should win this game, but at the same time, I just don't know how to really gauge this one.
I don't. Like last season, UCF was a Cinderella last season because they went undefeated after going, I want to say, winless the previous season.
They were 0-12 the year before, so it's been quite a turnaround for the Knights.
Oh yeah, and then they won American Conference, and it's like, UCF, they are, said, hey, we deserve to be in the playoff. We deserve this. We deserve that. And they went to Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, proved themselves, and beaten Auburn. And UCF, even after losing Scott Frost, and they lost Traquan Smith, they lost some players, and Shaquem Griffin from their defense, they still went undefeated. They still played a high level of football. And here's where UCF has the advantage is because of their emotions. They want to prove they deserve to be in the playoffs, and they got shunned out once again. And so if they want to prove themselves, today's a good day. Try and beat LSU. Then next season, build on your recruiting, build on the team that you have, because Coach Heupel said Mackenzie Milton might be back sometime. I mean, his career's not over.
Yeah, I did see that article the other day. They are talking like Mackenzie Milton could actually potentially play in 2019. So, which is impressive, seeing how he had that surgery just to restore blood flow to the lower part of his leg.
And I mean, if he's going to be ready for the 2019 season, that's just fast recovery. I don't know what doctors they gave him, but I mean, these must be miracle workers out there in Orlando, Florida. But, but I mean, and Coach Heupel, he knows the system. So if UCF should go undefeated again next season, I mean, don't you think it'll be time for them to now be like, okay, let's consider these guys in the playoffs? They've been going undefeated. They even knocked off a couple of SEC teams. Let's see how they fare against an Alabama or Clemson or going against an Ohio State or a Michigan type team. I mean, I feel honestly UCF is not going to get that respect until they go into a Power 5 conference, and I feel that ACC will be a perfect conference because I can see UCF beating the likes of Louisville and beating teams like Miami, beating teams like Pittsburgh, Virginia, Syracuse, Florida State. Their only hurdle will probably be Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see them hanging with Clemson, honestly.
Well, when you play consistently like that, you got to give them an opportunity at some point, I think. I think you're right.
I mean, you look at
it's just the Power 5 is too much of a monster at this point to really.
I mean, you look at teams like Louisville, who went from a group of 5. They were once, I believe, in the Big East, I want to say.
Yeah,
back when the Big East was a conference, and they would switch to the ACC. You look at TCU, who was Mountain West. Now they're in the Big 12.
They were pretty bad this year.
Yeah, they were, but I'm just saying, like, during their glory days in the Mountain West, and they switched to the Big 12.
I will give you just look at Utah. They made it to the Pac-12 title game this year.
Case in point. And so you see a trend of some of these teams. They going from Group of 5 to Power 5, and they adjusting pretty well. So, I mean, there's no telling that how UCF is going to do if you switch them to a conference like the ACC, or if you want to switch them to maybe the SEC. SEC might be too much of a stretch. That might be a stretch. You need to get some more meat on that team if you want them in the SEC. Never mind. Let's try and do ACC. ACC is ACC.
Well,
maybe Big 12. They got the offense for it. Big 12, maybe. They got the type of offense.
They do that. So, I mean, it should be interesting to watch this game. If the Knights do beat LSU, I definitely think that there should be considerations as to, like you said, either move or because they have been talking about expanding the playoffs to 8. That's definitely picked up momentum.
If that happens, I can definitely see UCF in the playoff next season. And say if they ought to extend to 8 teams next season by any chance. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's just say if the expansion is quickly agreed upon and they want to put it in effective immediately, start next season. If UCF does go undefeated, I definitely see them in the playoffs next season. And an 8-team playoff, I mean, number 1 can go down any time. I feel it will make things a lot more entertaining, and it's going to bring a lot more revenue into a lot of these schools, into a lot of these stadiums, into a lot of these places where games are held at. I mean, it's a win-win situation. You're giving more teams an opportunity at a national title, and you're also lifting ratings as far as, TV ratings, and you're bringing in revenue. So, I mean, you win on every side of the spectrum by expanding the playoffs to 8 teams. That's why the NCAA basketball tournament is so prosperous now, in every year and everything that they do, because they have such a large playing field.
Yeah. So, since we're on the topic of postseason, let's talk about some of the bowl games and then, of course, get to the playoffs. I pull that up.
I honestly was pulling for Purdue against Auburn. I really was.
Oh, Auburn destroyed them,
Oh
63-14.
yeah.
That was no
I think
contest.
that might have saved Gus Malzahn's job. That might have just saved his job.
Yeah. Okay. View all scores. Why not? There's some recent ones that let's see. So I don't know if you got to see any of the Syracuse West Virginia game.
Well, Will Greer sat out, so the score didn't really surprise me. I mean,
No.
honestly, if you're a leader of that offense, and I can understand that you want to get ready for the draft, you want to make sure that you're ready, but I mean, you're the leader of the offense. I mean, you should be out there with your team for your final game. I don't care what anybody says.
But still, you would think that the backup would be able to afford more than 18 points. I mean, don't get me wrong. Syracuse had a pretty solid defense this year.
Oh, most definitely. Definitely.
But I mean, it was a lot closer in the first half, but Syracuse really pulled away in the second half.
Again, that's the kind of surprised me was Wisconsin and Miami. I thought Miami was going to, bring forth more fight. And actually, Mark Richt had just retired after that game.
Right.
After the 7-6 season. Now, Miami, look out for that team next season because they hired their defensive coordinator, Manny Diaz, as their full-time head coach. And if you look at Manny Diaz, he just seems like the type of guy who embodies the spirit of the U. And he seems like the type of guy that is going to really is going to make a significant impact in the recruiting pool for Miami.
Yeah.
He's the type of guy that, if I want to go play football in the ACC, I'm definitely going to buy into what he's bringing to the table.
And it also surprised me that Wisconsin was able to win as convincingly as they did because there's times this year where their offense was just terrible.
Horrible.
Horrible.
I'm talking about one of the most inconsistent offenses you see. I mean, you look at their offense. I mean, their running back Taylor. I mean, he is their offense because Alex Hornibrook, you can't pay him for consistency. So,
yeah, and let's see.
What about Florida and Michigan?
I was just about to go there. Surprise? Yes? No?
Yes, surprise. I actually had Michigan winning that one, but I mean, and it kind of goes to show that Dan Mullen is putting them Gators back on the map. So if I'm in the SEC East, I watch out for Florida. If I'm Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, I will watch out for Florida next season because this season it's only the beginning of something great going on in Gainesville. Like Dan Mullen has changed that program completely around. Not only that, Felipe Franks has got. I mean, I didn't want to say it. I've been in denial by it, but Felipe Franks has evolved his game since Dan Mullen has came to Florida. Florida had a hiccup against Kentucky. They had a little hiccup against Missouri, but it just seems that every time they are in a super close game, or every time they lose a game they're supposed to win, they bounce back the next week. And it just goes to show that the learning from your mistakes, that factor, and being able to rebound off of adversity.
Yeah. Virginia shut out Will Muschamp in the North Carolina Gamecocks.
You mean the South Carolina Gamecocks?
Yes.
Didn't you know North Carolina was Tar Heels? Did you know that?
Of course it did.
I just learned that today. Let me stop.
I mean, what do you think about Will Muschamp? The last 2 years, I've not been too impressed with his job over there.
I mean, South Carolina, and I've seen shades of their potential. I've seen explosive flashes of what this Gamecocks team is truly capable of. I do feel like they are a team that can compete with some of the top teams in the country. But it just seems it's kind of like Vanderbilt's problem. They're not able to put the pieces together. They got the pieces there, but it's just for some odd reason they just cannot put those pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, finally let's talk about the playoffs. I'll just go and state the end results exactly the way I expected them to be. How they got to those end results, I'm a little bit surprised.
yeah, kind of confusing, but surprising.
So third, Alabama 45, Oklahoma 34. The score, not a surprise at all. The fact that Bama was able to jump out 28-0, and
It's
then
not a surprise to me.
Oklahoma make a game of it, a little bit surprising.
Not really surprising me considering how dangerous that Oklahoma offense is behind Kyler Murray and the type of offensive mindset that Lincoln Riley has. So that Oklahoma was going to come back and kind of made it interesting was not a surprise to me. It wasn't a surprise to me at all considering it was Kyler Murray's last game in Oklahoma.
Well, yeah, I knew. Yeah, I didn't expect Alabama to jump out 28-0 and then just,
I mean, I was
hit
expecting
cruise control.
I wasn't expecting it either because due to the fact Oklahoma doesn't really have a defense. Lee Corso even said Oklahoma has probably the worst defense in the nation, and you got Alabama who has probably the best defense in the nation. Alabama has also one of the best offenses in the nation. So you have an Alabama defense that can stop Kyler Murray on the first few drives and let the Alabama offense just jump out in front. Basically, there was no catching up. And so pretty much at that point, the game was already won for Alabama.
Right. Now, what I did not expect is for Clemson's defense to completely and totally shut down Ian Book and Irish offense.
It didn't surprise me at all. I mean, considering the reputation that the Clemson defense has had over the past few years since the playoffs have first started.
Really? Because I thought, I expected Clemson to win, but I also expected Notre Dame to put up a fight. They couldn't do nothing right. And then, it was almost like Clemson was just teasing the Irish because, it was 9-3 for most of the first half. And then all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence just puts up 2 touchdowns in a minute 44.
Now, what does Clemson have to do to beat Alabama?
Bring their A game. They're just equally as talented as far as I'm concerned.
I've seen teams bring their A game to Alabama, and Alabama still beat the living snot out of them.
Right.
I've seen it happen. So, I mean, bringing A game, no offense, but bringing A game is kind of like a.
Trevor Lawrence is
he's proven himself to be a solid quarterback.
He's a true freshman, and he's playing like a solid veteran.
I mean, Trevor, I've been keeping up with him since he was in high school, and the guy, he's something special. And his performance against Notre Dame, the way he played against Notre Dame, it kind of surprised me considering that because Notre Dame has a really good defense as well. Notre Dame came in with a very impressive defense, and so with Notre Dame giving up 30 points to Clemson was kind of a shock to me considering how good that defense is. But it just goes to show that Trevor Lawrence, and we're going to see how much he's evolved over this season when he goes against a tough defense like Alabama.
Right. I mean, I thought Notre Dame had a good defense, but apparently not.
Now we're on to Clemson and Alabama, Part 4, and action. Time to watch this again.
Yeah, that is becoming almost a routine matchup in the.
It's pretty much John Cena, Randy Orton WWE title. Just saying, this is John Cena, Randy Orton all over again.
Okay, so just to finally bring us to the end of the show, NFL playoffs are set, decided, and ready to go. We will start that this weekend.
I have to say this is probably going to be the most entertaining, most action-packed wild card to date. I mean, you got a lot of teams that can make a Super Bowl run in the wild card right now, and I'm talking about the AFC. I mean, we have a matchup between the LA Chargers and the Baltimore Ravens, and this time the game is going to be in Baltimore. You're looking at one of the most confident teams in the NFL right now, ever since putting in Lamar Jackson as a starting quarterback, and they have not looked back. They're AFC North champions. They've already beat LA once on the road, and now LA is coming to their house, and they are riding on high confidence right now. And I will not be surprised if Baltimore goes into Arrowhead or they go into Foxborough, and they could probably represent the AFC. I mean, I see them as a team that could possibly represent the AFC, to be honest.
Yeah. My pick is the Ravens, if not one other team. It is also just blazing hot right now.
Texans?
No, they've lost a few
Colts.
down the road. Yeah, Colts. Like I said, at least 2 weeks ago, that the Colts were going to make the playoffs, and they were going to make a run.
The Colts, the last teams if you're in the AFC, the last teams you want to face are the Colts and the Ravens. Those are teams you do not want to face. I wouldn't be surprised if those two meet up in the AFC title game, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. Titans showed it last season. You can go to Foxborough and beat the Patriots. Considering the teams that the Colts have and considering the team that the Ravens have.
Mm-hmm.
And until somebody can stop that run, the Ravens are just going to be unstoppable.
Right. Almost lost to the Browns, though.
I mean, well, you got to look at the Browns are a pretty good team. The Browns have proven themselves to be a pretty good team that can possibly be division contenders next season.
Just think about what team you're talking about with those words in those sentences.
I know the risk that I'm taking, but I'm going based off what I've seen from this team this season. I'm not going based off historical facts. I'm going based off what I've seen from them this season.
I'm going to kick my shoes off and jump in the fire with you. Cleveland makes the playoffs next year.
Oh, no doubt about it. Look, we're going to jump in the fire together. You can burn us all you want. Cleveland's going to the playoffs next season. I don't care what you say because you look at it.
They came close this year.
They came very close, and they were in a battle for the AFC North as well for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Until, because the playoff scenarios are just so confusing.
So what do you think of yet another Steelers collapse? And not because of the lack of talent, but
I think it's because of the coaching. I think you think it's time for a change at coaching?
I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's dysfunctional. Too chatty, too much noise, too much distraction.
I mean, you gotta look at it. This is probably the most talented team to not make the playoffs this season.
It is the most talented team not to make the playoffs this season.
I mean, come on. You look at this Steelers team, you got guys like Joe Hayden. You got Ben Roethlisberger. You got Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Vance McDonald, James Conner, who has proven himself to be the running back of the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward.
No.
You look at the talent all around on both sides of the ball for this Steelers team, and they're not in the playoffs. It's not so you're right. It's not because of the players. It's not because of their play on the field. It's just about the team chemistry is just awful. And then that earlier this week, Antonio Brown and Big Ben got into a dispute because Big Ben wanted him to run a play again. It's just there's no type of chemistry in that locker room.
Mm-hmm. So here's something. You go 9-7. You clinch a wild card. You win a game in the playoffs before losing to the Patriots. So you decided to fire your head coach, bring in a new guy with some, former player. You go 9-7 and miss the playoffs.
You must be talking about the Tennessee Titans.
I'm talking about the Tennessee Titans.
First off, I'm not going to say that, Mike Vrabel, he's actually done a pretty good job with the Titans this season. There were times where the Titans just looked horrible, and then there have been times where the Titans just looked like a well-oiled machine. My thing is, why do you fire Mike Mularkey? At first he was the interim head coach for the Tennessee Titans. Then last season, he has a full season with them. He takes them to the playoffs. They knock off the Chiefs in a wild card. On the road at Arrowhead Stadium is one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. Of course, you go to Foxborough and you get whooped by the Patriots. Of course, the Patriots were riding high last season. Why do you fire Mike Mularkey, knowing what he brought to the table and knowing how capable he is as a head coach for that team? I'm surprised he doesn't have a job now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you bring in Mike Vrabel. I'm not going to lie. I actually have a lot of high hopes for Mike Vrabel as the head coach of the Titans of the future, honestly.
I know, but it kind of boomerangs around to that question of why fix what ain't broke.
That's what the Niners did when they had Jim Harbaugh. They missed the playoffs one year, and the year they missed the playoffs, they just part ways with them. Look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now look at what the Niners are going through. And now you look at Jim Harbaugh, who's very successful at Michigan. Yeah, he has a couple things that he has to accomplish, but he's still doing pretty well at Michigan.
Right. Well, uh, so the Kirk Cousins experiment didn't work out too well.
They're still going to keep him unless they want to buy him out.
Dude, they guaranteed him $84 million.
So basically, he signed a 3-year, $84 million contract, all of it guaranteed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100% guaranteed contract. And
Look, if I'm Kirk Cousins and they trying to release me, oh, y'all want to release me? Okay, cool. Hey, so where's my money? Come on. You want to release me? Huh?
did you see him like arguing with Adam Thielen on the sideline about running routes?
I didn't see him argue with Adam Thielen.
You should go back and watch it. It's pretty funny. I mean, he's just at Thielen, and Thielen's just kind of standing there like, "Bro, I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear a word you're saying."
Like Adam Thielen's like, look, I've been on this team longer than you have. I ain't trying to hear what you guys say. You all paid and everything, but come on, like, and also understand that the highest paid QBs of this league, I think, is like the top 6 highest paid QBs in this league. All of them missed the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, because he signed a fat contract last offseason. Derek Carr.
Yeah.
They all missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so many coaches got fired.
I was a bit surprised about that.
Adam Gase got fired. Dirk Cutter got fired. Steve Wilkes got fired. Todd Bowles got fired. Vance Joseph got fired. Who else got fired?
Marvin Lewis.
Finally. Marvin Lewis, finally. After how long did it take for the Bengals to fire him? Like 15 years and 0 playoff victories to fire him?
Well, and that's the only.
Hey, and make matters worse, he endorses Hugh Jackson to be his replacement. You're talking about a guy who's gone 3-32-1 in like 3 seasons at Cleveland, and you want to endorse him to be the next head coach of the Bengals franchise who's trying to turn over a new leaf?
Well, here's the thing about Marvin Lewis. I understand the frustration of not winning a playoff game, and ultimately that is what ended up doing him in. But at the same time, most people forget what the Bengals were prior to his arrival.
That is actually very true, and Marvin Lewis actually did a big turnaround in that in that franchise. But it just seemed that for a while, the Bengals franchise, they got tired of just being stagnant. They want to elevate.
Yeah, but at the same time, pre-Lewis, the Bengals were, to say a laughingstock would just be incredibly nice. They were bad as a franchise.
Look, he remembers all this. I don't. I'm only 24 years old. But still, it's just like...
Okay, I'll give you that.
But, I mean, you also have to understand, though he's done a lot for that Bengals franchise, and he does have a voice within that front office. He does, considering everything that he has done. But I feel that his time in Cincinnati is over. I think his time in Cincinnati has been over for the past few seasons, and it seems they can't get over that hump. There are times where he's led the Bengals to the playoffs to where they were poised for a playoff run. And he's done many great things in their franchise, but for the past 5, 6, 7 seasons, they've just been very stagnant.
They have been stagnant, and that is that's ultimately what ended up costing him his job. Although he did say he wanted to retire, but I think he was going to retire after next season, and they're like, "Yeah, thanks, but no thanks."
It's just his time just ran out, and the Bengals, they want to move forward. And I feel this is the perfect way to usher in a new era in Cincinnati. You got a lot of talented players on that team, but you also need to be able to build a coaching staff over there. Falcons, they did a massive overhaul offensively. They fired Steve Sarkisian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Falcons are gonna probably hang on to Dan Quinn for a while,
and it's pretty certain that the Panthers are going to hang on to Ron Rivera.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those teams' struggles weren't their head coach's problem.
It was mainly, with the Falcons, they were plagued by injuries. They lost 2 of their guards. They had lost guys in their secondary. They had lost Deion Jones for most of the season. They had lost Devontae Freeman at running back because of I want to say it was a groin injury. And so this was a team plagued by injuries. If you take away all the injuries, Falcons would probably be in the playoffs right now.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
So the main reason why they struggled was because of injuries. And Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley, they did everything they could as far as trying to keep the team together and as far as performing 100% day in and day out.
All right. So, what's your picks for Wild Card Weekend?
All right. So I have the Bears knocking off the Eagles. I don't see the Nick Foles magic, getting past the Bears in Soldier Field. I have the Cowboys beating the Seahawks. I have the Ravens beating the Chargers. And I have the Colts beating the Texans.
The only one that I have to disagree with you with is I actually can see the Seahawks going into Big D and winning.
It can happen, but I just feel that the Cowboys, they have garnered up a lot of resiliency and a lot of grit. I mean, you've seen this team. I mean, you look at a team that started the season off 3-5, and they won their last 7 out of 8 games.
Well, I mean, the Seahawks started off pretty funky too, but they came on strong in the second half of the year.
I mean, but you got to look at it like the Cowboys have been a lot more consistent on both sides of the ball, especially after acquiring Amari Cooper from the Raiders, which has changed their offense around completely. You also got to look at the emergence of Leighton Vander Esch, their rookie out of Boise State. Their defense has emerged as one of the top defenses, as one of the most suffocating defenses in the league. I mean, you saw them against the New Orleans Saints. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, I'm not a big Cowboys fan, but I got to give credit where credit is due. These Cowboys look like a well-oiled machine right now, and this is this team, I can see them winning a playoff game this season. Now, do I see them going into the Dome and beating the Saints or going to L.A. and beating the Rams? Absolutely not. But I do see them taking a first step as far as getting back to relevance and getting back to greatness and winning a playoff game this season. Their time may come in soon. I mean, I don't want to see it, but
yeah,
big ups. I mean, this Cowboys team has gotten a lot tougher.
They are, but I mean, Seattle's no slouch either. After all, they did beat Kansas City last week.
They did, and I mean, this is a team that they have gotten on the same page as far as in the locker room, on the field. They finally have a rushing attack on offense, which is something they struggled with over the past couple of seasons. They have a rushing attack with Carson and Penny out there. Russell Wilson has gotten a lot better as far as managing the game. And the defense, they're pretty much like no Legion of Boom, no problem. Mm-hmm. Bobby Wagner has pulled that defense together, and he has been leading those guys out there every night.
And I'm not a big Seahawks fan either.
I have compassion for the Seahawks. I've always had a thing for the Seahawks. I just like Pete Carroll's style.
Well, you don't have the history with Pete Carroll that most LSU fans do.
I know he used to coach at USC. I know.
Yeah. You were too young in 2003, were you?
I was only 9 years old in 2003.
Yes, what's that?
LSU fans and Pete Carroll, I never heard them in the same sentence. Enlighten me.
Oh, that was 2003. That was back in the BCS days.
I remember LSU had beaten Oklahoma for the national title.
Yeah, but USC took home the AP national title. So the LSU and USC were held as co-champions that year.
I did not know that.
But Pete Carroll was like, well, we're the real national titles. They didn't really earn theirs or something like that.
Well, they beat Oklahoma for it, and Oklahoma had probably the best quarterback in the nation at the time, Jason White. So, yeah, I can't remember 2003. I didn't remember that part 2003, but I do remember LSU beating Oklahoma during Bob Stoops in his super prime at the time.
Yeah.
But anyways, you do know kickoff is in about 15 minutes.
I know. I've been clock watching. I'm watching the clock now.
I am too.
It's very fun. All right. Well, it's been a rather exciting show. Thank you for joining us on our, officially our first live show. I guess technically our second one. We did have that little live broadcast at the Alabama game. More to come in the future. Hopefully, a bigger audience next time. Thanks for tuning in. Join us next week. This has been, well,
Let's talk football.
Yeah, let's talk football. Let's go with that. I'm John Behrens.
I'm Joshua Perkins.
Tuning up. The hell's this?
I'm around 19% now. I should have brought my charger with me. I'll be all right. Whoa!
What the fuck was that?
Somebody added me on a group chat, and
I was like,
I don't respond to it. I don't get involved with it. I'm just.
It's supposed to be my Facebook page. What the hell?
Oh. That's from my Facebook page. Somebody added me. I didn't. Involuntarily. I don't do nothing on that page. Don't judge me. Like, I seriously, I don't do nothing on that page.
Where's the log out? Because I'm logged into my page.
Let me see. Okay. Log out. Wait, hang on.
There it is.